Whoa. Can you call me the Rat King? The Banana King? Something King? Something? Give me something. Come on. Hey everyone, it's me, Ryan. I am here to talk to you about something. Obviously, that's why you're watching a video that I'm doing. You're here to listen to me talk about something. What am I going to talk about? We are here today to talk about Biomutant, a game that some of you may know, some of you may not know, and if you don't know, I want to get it on your radar because it's on mine. We got a new combat trailer the other day, and the combat trailer is not very long, and in fairness, it's not much longer than any of the other gameplay trailers or gameplay snippets that they've shown, but we first get to see a very open landscape that's very vibrant and colorful, and then begins the action. You see the player character kind of fly around in this water bubble type thing, and then we see the character flipping in the air and shooting what seems to be a gun. It looks super fast-paced, and the word I want to use here is that it all looks very kinetic and smooth. As I said, the gameplay doesn't look drastically different from what we have seen the last few years and trailers they have shown, so it does lead me to believe that at the very least there hasn't been any dramatic turns in the direction of the game. There's some cool looking mechanicals it appears you can use to attack enemies or skate across water. Seems there's a lot of variety in the melee weapons too. There seems that there are traditional swords as well as another one that looked almost like a giant ball on a rod or something, and it was electric or something like that. And in turn, you also see other elemental attacks and big ground attacks, and you see these absolutely monstrous creatures. Like I said, the trailer itself is not very long, so you see all this in just a short amount of time, but regardless, it still gave us a solid look at what this game has to offer in terms of its combat, and that is not even adding on to the other elements that the developer described later on, such as choice and narrative, and choice in classes, and size of your character, and what they look like. I'm sure you can make comparisons to other types of games, like maybe something of a chaotic action-heavy type adventure game. I think I may have heard that it's got some DNA of like a Devil May Cry in there, kind of, but it has this style to it that I think is just very unique. It has a really nice aesthetic to it, and I want to get it on your radar if it's not, especially if you're an RPG fan. I think this could be something really, really cool and something special. Biomutant, from what the developer has described, we are looking at a deep RPG style game where you have these deep class-based combat mechanics, choices in the narrative, as I said before, and even your appearance will affect how the game is played and your skills and abilities. Obviously, for example, a bigger character won't be as agile as a smaller character, but they'll have more brute strength, and smaller characters will have less strength but be more agile, and everything else in between. It's been described as a post-apocalyptic kung fu fable. Now, if that doesn't get you all riled up, I don't know what will. What if I told you that I think that you're very handsome, huh? I want to preface this next thing that I'm about to say by just putting it out there that I don't mean this next thing I'm going to say as a way of disrespecting the team making the game or anybody who may be working on the project. It looks great and a whole lot of fun, but it's not exactly, at least based on what I know, one of the most high-profile games out there. Now, that could be a good thing as it gave the developer time to work on the game in silence and quash bugs or work on the game just without a release date over their heads. They received many questions from fans, of course, if it was even still coming, and they released a statement, I think it was close to this time last year or the year prior, basically saying, it's still coming, we are just working on it, quietly. Point being is that he even came out and said, or did an interview recently, where he said the same thing. He basically said, no, the last year or so has just been us squashing bugs, and we didn't want to do anything that would lead us to do any kind of intense crunch. And if there is going to be any kind of overtime or a crunch schedule, it's going to be very limited and controlled so that it's not unhealthy for the team and that everyone still has time to go home and recharge. Which, look, I realize that we wait a long time for these games, but I think this is a good strategy going forward because you don't build up any of that anticipation and then only to have it crushed when you have to delay it multiple times or once even. And look, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, mainly because I don't know any dead horses. And if I did, I'd be very sad. Poor horsey. But the situation around the game, it's hard to not inevitably point to the parallels you draw between the discussion around Biomutant and Cyberpunk. Not that Biomutant necessarily has the same amount of publicity that Cyberpunk did, but I don't want to hammer on the game again. I just talked about it again the other day. More than anything, I think it just speaks to how information is good, but creating an intense hype around your game can be detrimental to its success. So I think them hunkering down and just quietly working on it and then showing what they have to show when it's ready is a good thing. One more thing about the trailer before I get into the other topic of this video is that you're not going to see it here, but we know from past presentations that there's also going to be a fair bit of equipment that you can equip that have different abilities attached to them and even different ways of helping you traverse the world. And it's also worth noting that while some things they did say, like being able to shoot arrows into mountains or cliff faces and then climb them, sounds incredibly satisfying, and in some ways they did say this in 2018, so I expect it to be there because they haven't said otherwise. Those kinds of things I definitely will not necessarily fault them for if they hit the cutting room floor. But look, maybe someone could write in and tell me, but as far as I'm aware, as I've said before, or I think I've said earlier, is that the showings of this game have been fairly consistent across the board, which is not required always because things change in development, but it's good to see nonetheless. The agile nature of the combat, the vibrant colors, and the almost downtrodden Pixar-ish style visuals, for lack of a better way of describing it, and of course, the cute little furry dudes you play as, just have me on board, and this trailer is just more confirmation that I'm going to be checking this game out when it releases. Worth noting that there are other more recent gameplay demos and trailers that are probably a bit longer and possibly as recent as either a few days ago or last year, and they show off some of those elements. So there's no reason to believe that they've cut anything substantial. I just mentioned that as just kind of like a don't get your hopes up for something that may not be there and it's kind of small. Those videos also show various other abilities and locales and even characters as well as enemies you'll encounter on your journey. You'll see the various ways of traversing, be it vehicles and mechs and even a glider, even a bit of customization of your character and their attributes, and of course the in-depth crafting system with the various weapons. I wanted to bring that up because while this is more in reference to this video, to the brief combat trailer that they released the other day, there are more in-depth looks at this game if this video has got you at all interested. A video published by channel Gamecross here on YouTube shows off about 55 minutes of gameplay for Biomutant, and it appears to be fairly recent, so I would definitely check that out if you want to see more of the game in action. But to summarize, for those of you who want to remain somewhat innocent because you don't want to see anything else, it just shows more in depth some of the gameplay elements we have been discussing thus far: the fast-paced action-oriented combat, weapons, customization, and all the RPG goodness you could want. One other thing I wanted to bring up is a little tidbit, a little thingy-hoozy, I guess if you will. What's a thingy-hoozy? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This kind of happened in a kind of blink and you'll miss it type of fashion. I guess I kind of buried the lead here, but the tweet from the Biomutant Twitter account announced a very peculiar thing alongside the gameplay trailer, and it is also at the end of said combat trailer if you watch it to the end. The tweet read, "Biomutant is now available for digital pre-order. Pre-order now and get the Mercenary class, a unique combination of perks for digital and collector's edition pre-orders only." Which made me, and I'm sure a few other people, maybe yourself, thought, huh? What? They're locking a class essentially behind a paywall, unless you pre-order it or get the collector's edition. It's clearly not a new concept, obviously. This isn't a brand new concept just created by this team of people, and they're not the evildoers of the universe because they decided to do it in this instance. They're not. It's happened before, but that doesn't mean it's any better or we like it anymore or I like it anymore. If you go to the Biomutant website, it clarifies some of the details. Yes, I know you can read it, but I figured I would read it for you now. Think of it like I'm telling you a bedtime story, and we'll discuss it. You like bedtime stories, right? Pre-order bonus. The Mercenary. The Mercenary can only be selected at the start of the game if you have the DLC. The Mercenary offers a unique combination of perks and has two-handed combat as a starting ability and is appropriately equipped with a kind of classic katana and the shorter, I'm going to try to say this word, wakizashi sword. I think I got it. If one would use terms from our world. Quite simply, the Mercenary lets players inside the world of Biomutant in the classic samurai look. Who will get the Mercenary as a pre-order bonus? The Mercenary class included in all digital pre-orders and also part of the collector's edition and the atomic edition of Biomutant, even if you buy them later. In these editions, a code for the DLC is included. Pre-orders of the standard box version of Biomutant, however, do not contain the Mercenary DLC. Is the DLC platform exclusive, or is there a difference between the PC and console pre-orders? The Solander DLC is identical on all platforms. PlayStation 4 owners also receive a PS4 theme from Biomutant. Will the Mercenary be available after the release? Yes, we will continue to offer the Mercenary DLC after Biomutant is released. As a pre-orderer, you make a slightly better deal as the DLC comes free with the game for pre-orders. This saves you money compared to buying the game on release day and then buying the class as well. Now, I gotta say, I find the framing hysterical because they're basically like, hey, you know, if you pre-order it, it'll save you money. And it's like, well, you created the scenario in which I had to spend money. I guess the best thing that I can say out of all of this is that it will be available after release or maybe even at release. Worth noting, we don't know the pricing just yet of it by itself, but I'll even say that the price really isn't the point, in my opinion. It's the kind of thing of having to pay more for something that's purposely being held as a pre-order bonus. It's not a new practice, like I said, and it's not the only game that has ever done this ever, or even recently, but still. And look, I know you're probably used to seeing those videos that are super reactionary and all outraged, and I'm not trying to make this a bigger deal than it is, obviously. To be fair, I really can't say what it's going to be like in the game because I don't know how it's going to factor into the game at large. For most players, it may not even matter that much. It won't ruin their enjoyment of the game, me included, but I wanted to discuss it anyway and maybe just give you some of my thoughts. Over the years, personally, I think it's fair to say that I've kind of fallen out of the love with the idea of pre-order bonuses. I'm not like anti-pre-order bonus, but I'm not like total, I'm agnostic, I guess is the best way to describe it. It does incentivize people to pre-order the game, but I also think it depends on how you do it. I get these companies want to make more of a profit and get some guaranteed income for these pre-orders, but I think most people, myself included, are willing to let this kind of stuff slide if it's just like cosmetic and skins, and I do understand that, but we're talking about something the team built and put into the game and spent time on and probably balanced and made sure worked with the rest of the content of the game, and now it's kind of just locked behind some kind of arbitrary pre-order bonus. It's not exactly pay to win because it's not an online game, but it kind of falls in the realm of deliberately removing something from a game to make money on it. And yeah, I know a lot of other games do that, but this seems just very, very blatant. Look, you and I are not stupid. We know they're going to try to maximize the profit they make from a product they make. It doesn't sit right with me. It's basically like, you know, back in the day, companies used to get a lot of shit for doing the day one DLC. This is essentially the day one DLC, and they're just not calling it that. The most prominent day one DLC in my mind was Mass Effect 3. It had its day one Prothean DLC you got from pre-ordering the game. And look, I don't know how anyone else felt about the Prothean DLC, but I played Mass Effect 3 with it from the get-go, from the beginning, and every single time afterwards. And it was, to me, so seamlessly woven into the story. It just was strange to me that this was not just in the game proper. Even then, the price difference between a deluxe version of Mass Effect games or the regular version was just like $10. Biomutant, they didn't really give you much of an option. Again, we don't know the price of it by itself, but Biomutant, for example, if you're going to get the physical version, it's $60 versus $120 for the collectors, or maybe you want to go crazy and get the Atomic Edition for $400. Point being, it's not like THQ Nordic is doing anything that is new here. It's just a little disappointing. And look, I admit this likely won't ruin the game or be a big deal in the long run. It's just something that's kind of shitty and it doesn't sit right with me. And likely, look, I mean, I don't know much about this, but I would say that some of those pre-order bonuses may not be made at the developer level. It could be a publisher thing to push for more pre-orders. Who knows? I don't know. It doesn't mean I'm not going to try the game out, but it is lame all the same. That rhymed. Yeah, that could be a rapper, right? No. That's the whitest thing I've ever said. Look, the game looks good either way, and I want to try and get the word out there, but I also think it's important to be fair and say that I'm not a fan of locking something that is more, I guess, mechanic, like gameplay based behind a paywall, at least at launch, because it's done and you're shipping it later to make money. Look, if they develop it later and then make the class later, say, and release it as a small DLC, maybe it's not as bad. I realize that's kind of semantic argument and maybe that's contradictory because, well, because it's at launch, it's lame, but if it was a month later, it's fine. That's a fair point to make. I'm not saying that I have the right answer here. I just saying it doesn't sit right with me, but at the end of the day, if we keep buying them, if we keep doing this, if we keep supporting them, they'll keep doing it. And overall, I didn't want this whole video to be based upon my questions that I had around the DLC of this mercenary class or anything. I really wanted it to be about partially that, but also more just getting this game on your radar if it's not there yet, because I think it's got a really cool aesthetic and feel and look to it, but I'm curious what you guys think, of course, too. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. What did you think about all of this? If you liked the video, of course, give it a thumbs up. If not, give it a thumbs down. Don't you dare lie. Subscribe if you feel inclined, and allow me to just throw it out there. Smash the bell so you can stay up with the latest and greatest. Thank you all for watching. I don't know why I put my finger on my head. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon.